Illustrator. In my presentation, students will learn the elements of a book and create their own. This unit will allow for the students to take on the role of the author and the illustrator, which provides them the opportunity to create, write, and draw their story. When children are given the autonomy to create, it boosts their confidence, allows for ownership of their work, and provides opportunities to make connections to prior knowledge. Knowing the learners. In my classroom, it's a full-day preschool program, and it is also a blended classroom. We have 4 and 5-year-olds, and currently we only have 7 students with the potential to have up to 20. Out of those 7 students, 2 of those students have IEPs, and 5 of those students are general education students. Many of our students speak English but come from different ethnic backgrounds. A fun fact, my class is full of 7 very, very active little boys. The objectives of my unit plan will be the students will be able to recall 2 events in the story with 50% accuracy. The students will be able to describe the role of the author and the illustrator with 100% accuracy, And the students will be able to create a book including a title, main characters, and illustrations with 75% accuracy. For my design strategy, I chose, and I might butcher this, Gagne's 9 events of instruction. And they start off with attention, objectives, recall, present, guidance, practice, feedback, assess, and retention. The technologies that I will be using will be PBS Kids, specifically their stories section of their games. Epic Books, the students can go on to Epic Books and read any book that they would like. And they do this every single day for independent reading. And then the last one will be Khan Academy Kids, and this technology will just be a video shown talking about the author and the illustrator. For my day-to-day description, on day 1, the students will gather books that they like out of our library, and we will read one of those books for the first day. This will all happen during morning meeting. On our second day, I will have the students put on their thinking caps and recall a time that they drew a picture. I might ask them, did they include lines in the picture? What color was the picture? Were there any letters on the picture? And I will let them share out. Then they will recite the objective for the day. And that objective will be about being able to recall 2 events within a story. And the last thing that they will do is I will present the definitions of an author and an illustrator. And they will recite after me. The author is the person who writes the words, and the illustrator is the person who draws the pictures. To also help with recalling their prior knowledge, the students will be given a picture that they had drawn at some point during the school year. And I will ask them who drew the picture, who wrote those words on the paper. And they will say themselves, and therefore I will have them then recite, I am the author, I drew the pictures, I am the illustrator. I am the author, I wrote the words, I am the illustrator, I drew the pictures. In day 3, the students will recite the objective of the day, and then they will learn the parts of the story and their importance. Day 3, we will also be reading one of the stories the children chose on day 1. On day 4, during morning meeting, I will model how to create a short story. I will model my thinking process, how I choose characters, how I choose their names, how I incorporate events and details into the story. And this also goes in hand with guiding the children. And then they will practice on PBS Kids. Day 5, they will recite the objective of the day, which will be students will be able to write, draw, and create their own books with 75% accuracy. During this time, the students will also begin working on their books during center time. This is the time where they will also receive feedback as we are creating these books, reminding them to make sure that they are going back to the main characters, reminding them to have events happening in the story, to ask them what do they want to happen next after this has already happened. And day 6 is when they will come back to school on Monday after having their projects or their books completed, and we will talk about their books, and this is when they will get their assessment. Their assessment will include, it will basically be like a conversation where they tell me what the author and the illustrator does, and then we will go through their books and I will read them out loud, or I'll have the student read it to me, and I will ask them, who are the main characters? What is the title of your book? And the last objective will be assessed by the students reading a completely different book and being able to recall 2 events of that story. The mixed ability differentiation options. One would be providing options for my students similar to the PBS Kids simulation. So for example, if the story is about a little boy named Max and he's going outside to play, I would have 3 objects in front of the student to be able to choose. Is he going to play with a jump rope? Is he going to play with the hula hoop? Or is he going to play with the ball? And that will help me help the student create their story. The second option I have is for creating books online. This means that the student will be using the text-to-speech feature, and it will type their words for them. And then they will use one of the functions on the iPad to create the pictures of their story. More assistive and adaptive technologies that I could include in this unit plan is the audio recorders, where the student would be able to speak into the audio recording and then either take it home or come sit with the teacher, and the teacher will scribe out what they came up themselves. The next one, of course, would be text to speech, using this feature as the students are creating their books online. And then the last one, color filters. Color filters is an assistive technology that helps students who struggle with reading or struggle with sight and reading, and those who are blind. I do have a student in my classroom that struggles to see out of one of his eyes, so adding the color filter might be another support for him to be able to see text better. Yes. Here are some sample handouts. In this first handout right here, the students will be instructed to cut out the images at the bottom and glue them into the appropriate spots. This is an assignment that they would do during center time with other students so that we could talk about it. Now this handout will probably be given to the students at the beginning of the unit just to see if they would be able to draw the line from the word to the picture. The students will have to really look at the pictures closely, because some pictures definitely show the children drawing with colored crayons or color pencils, and other pictures show the students actually writing words. So in this assignment, the student will have to read the word, or it will be read to them, and they will have to draw a line from what the author is to what the picture is. Here are some samples of student artifacts. So this first artifact would be of a student who is somewhere between 4 and 5 years old. And in her story, she wrote, Aaliyah's hair was big with polka dots. So you can see that she was able to draw the shape of a face, and knows that most people have know that people have eyes and a mouth. And she drew some strokes for hair and polka dots. She knows what polka dots are because she added little dots within her character's hair. Now at the bottom, you can see that she knows some of those letters. She was able to look at the top where the teacher scribed and was able to copy some of those letters. or what we call letter stems or letter strings. There we go, letter strings. It looks as if she knows that some of these letters have a specific shape, um, and some she just needs help being able to connect those dots and being able to write them all on one line. Now, this artifact might be of a student who's somewhere between 3 and 4 years old. They do know that the shape of letters, the orientation of some letters, but don't have them together in a sentence string. To represent the characters in their story, they drew circles. They did not add any facial features or body features. They just added circles. However, what the student did do is they knew that they were going to the park. In the story, they knew that their character was going to the park. So they did incorporate green in the back, which I would assume would be grass at the park. For my online digital content, I chose to create a Google Doc to share with my parents. I chose a Google Doc because Google Docs are easy for my parents to navigate, and especially when you're working with younger children, the easier it is to navigate, the easier it is to get the information to the parent and to the child. Conceptual categorization. From the SAMR model, I think that my unit falls best under the substitution bracket. I chose substitution because the technology used is included to enhance the more traditional teaching method. In this unit, the students use the technology to deepen their understanding of details and the flow of a story from the beginning, middle, and end. Throughout this unit, we still discuss the topic of the author and the illustrator while reading paperback books. I also chose substitution because the task at hand stays the same. It is more interactive and appeals to students' interest, but essentially it's still the same task. For my summative evaluation in assessing the student's learning of content, I will first ask the student, when we are looking at the books that they created, what does the author do and what does the illustrator do? And this will be scored using a check mark or a minus sign. For the second objective, the students will be asked to say or point where the title is, who the characters are in the books. I will collect this data by writing the title on my assessment sheet and who they say that the characters are, and if they have illustrations on every page. For my last objective, I will ask the students to tell me an event that happened in the story. This will be a story that the students did not create, but a book out of our classroom. And I will collect this data by writing the events that the student says. For assessing the effectiveness of the unit's design, I will review the students' results first, and that will give me an indication on if there were some areas that the students were not clear on that I need to go back on, or if the students truly understood the content that was being presented to them. The next thing I would do would be to consult my co-teacher and assistant for feedback. They will let me know any suggestions that they think I should try or things that I might need to tailor for the students that we have and their abilities. The last thing I would do would be consulting the students, asking the students what they liked or what they did not like about being the author or the illustrator. I would ask if they enjoyed being the author more than the illustrator or vice versa. And of course, the last question would be how they think that the unit could have been better. Here is my list of references. Thank you for joining my presentation.